Royal watchers, brace yourselves. Investigative journalist Tom Bower has just dropped a bombshell revelation about Archie and Lilibet's true identity, and Prince Harry is said to be in full panic mode. Could this be the most devastating scandal the monarchy has ever faced? Stay tuned as we break down this shocking story shaking the royal family to its core. The placid majesty of Windsor Castle serves to evoke an image of the past, representing tradition, constancy, and continuity of bloodline, an ancient line that has weathered the storms of wars, history, and scandal. Maintaining its continuity, legitimacy, and its predetermined fate in the very vessels of its heirs is something on which the monarchy depends heavily. But what happens when this most firm basis of unquestionable royal blood comes under doubt? As murmurs become accusations and accusations turn into outright terror inside palace walls. This is not simply a story about a family feud or a petty spat between public personalities. It is a story that cuts to the heart of monarchy, and one in which Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are at the center of a storm that they may find hard to steer. Before we go further, show us some love by smashing the like button, and don't forget to subscribe and click the bell notification button for notifications whenever we post are here. So, a thing not these or why Tom Bower, that's the guy who's never met a scandalous truth he didn't shake a stick at, or at least one you wouldn't pay the price to shake a stick at, which is clearly going to be the biographical approach Tom is going to shake a stick at this time around. Bower has made his career drilling under shiny veneers of power. With his exposé journalist reputation, Bower is feared and respected, and when Bower speaks, institutions shiver because his words are not usually hot air. His most recent announcement is nothing short of explosive: Archie Harrison and Lily Diana, the actual offspring known collectively as the children of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle the world over. The shocking revelation that Harry's children may not be his is far from just sending shockwaves but shaking the very foundation of Harry's identity to the royal family. In a world where titles, stakes, and family ranking wield power, this claim is an affront to legitimacy and to the photoshopped facade of continuity in the royal family. If this claim is true, this casts Archie and Lilibet's parentage into question, and who they belong to in the monarchy. This tawdry Palace Gates soap opera not only threatens their status as successors, but also raises questions about their place in the narrative Meghan and Harry are creating for Prince Harry. For a man who has spent his entire life in the public eye, his reputation at the most personal level compromises everything Harry has lived through. Issues surrounding his paternity and those looking-glass tabloid stories around Princess Diana and James Hewitt. The scars never quite healed, informing his combative relationship with the press to this day. Now, decades later, a similar variety of rumor not only misgenders him but misnames his children. Despite Harry's best efforts to keep Archie and Lily out of the public eye, these claims surround them in the center of distasteful rumors about their genetic heritage. It's a bitter reminder of his own past that sends him plummeting into a panic, confronted both with painful memories and a gnawing need to protect his family. The secrecy around the births of Archie and Lily is now under fresh scrutiny, in contrast with traditional royal birth announcements, photos outside the hospital, and ceremonial routines. Where at the outset secrecy seemed to serve a legitimate purpose, the clandestine handling has turned the tide to a suspicion-laden shadow. Aside from the grueling process of accessing key files and the question of releasing some photos, and the calculated appearance of Lily more akin to a PR strategy than a celebration for the family, naturally. These discrepancies, observed by Bower, cast suspicion. Adding a layer of complexity, Harry and Meghan are, of course, now operating in the high-stakes world of brand building in America, flashing their multi-million-dollar Netflix, podcast, book, and public appearance deals. Everything about them is premised on the idea that they're a modern royal family, the enduring fairy tale romance, the battle against hidebound traditionalism, the fresh hope represented by their children. Archie and Lilibet are more than just a couple of kids in this story, they're a new paradigm. Harry and Meghan are attempting to redefine and push against established norms. The lineage is simply too volatile for the brand itself, since a potential decision to cave in the family tree to jeopardize the equity of the averages. This isn't just a question of royal bloodlines, but of self-preservation. In a world where perception is power, and power is money, the stakes couldn't be higher. So let's put this in context. People have previously accused Meghan Markle of controlling the narrative, manipulating the public by massaging facts to suit her desired narrative. Her fans see it as resilience, her critics as manipulation. When Tom Bower points the finger at her, you get the feeling her instinct is to deny, bury or sue. But history shows that attempts to muzzle dissent can easily backfire, especially in the digital age. The harder you try covering something up, the more people are going to notice it. This creates a conundrum for Meghan and for Harry. Ignore the allegations and the tales circulate, face them and the problem only grows. In both cases, the identity of the child becomes a matter of international contention, a situation no parent can tolerate, but more so a prince with a continuous heart for his family. Let's pause and ponder the ultimate question: what if Tom Bower was right? Imagine for a moment that Harry was not the birth father to Archie and Lilibet. The ramifications on the court would be huge. It would have led to crisis talks over succession, titles, and the validity of Meghan's marriage with the royal establishment. Beyond the palace gates, adversaries of the monarchy would see this an opportunity to argue that the whole institution was anachronistic, that heritage should be no basis to bestow such significance upon any individual in the 21st century. For Harry, who is caught between the crown he has rejected and the family he has been trying to protect, the aftermath would be gut-wrenching. His love for his kids would never waver, but he would be under public scrutiny both as a protector and a villain. Revelation is at hand, and we stand on the precipice. Rumors spread, hysteria arises, and questions populate the air. It is unclear if the children, intended to represent a new beginning for the House of Windsor, will end up by accident as the fault line that cracks it apart. As the soap opera of Archie and Lilibet's lineage plays out, with Prince Harry's agitation being both a symptom and a warning of things that are to come, it isn't just his own story that might change, but the future of the monarchy too. The claims made by Tom Bowers were not the first the public had heard of tension between Harry and Meghan and other members of the royal family. More a storm long in the making since Harry and Meghan stepped down from royal life in 2020 and there was trouble behind palace walls. Their lives became a balancing act between aspirations of independence and the need to retain a royal allure to uphold their public image. Every interview, appearance or photo of Archie or Lilibet has been carefully choreographed not simply to reveal aspects of their lives, but to impose upon the world a certain narrative about them. The more they held on to their story, the more unbearable the pressure must have become as it threatened to come apart at the seams. Bower, a ferocious puncher, knew exactly where to go. He wasn't content to dust off the same old criticisms of Meghan's ambitions or Harry's battle with the media. He zeroed in for the kill. The legitimacy of their offspring was central to their new family image. The jolting accusations spread like wildfire across social media, high on viral velocity, and long before the palace press office had an opportunity to try to salve it. Hashtags exploded, conspiracy theories materialized and scrutiny escalated as old photos re-emerged, poking out baby bumps, dissecting features and pulling together timelines to catch any possible discrepancies. Once images that emitted warmth and maternal joy for Meghan, now they were being scrutinized like evidence in a courtroom. As cruel a show as it looked to outsiders, it was everything that Harry was afraid of. His closing up shop and leaving the UK in part to protect his children from this kind of microscope exposure was in vain, as the internet would simply ferry the gossip to screens around the world with no physical barricade to stand in the way. The panic relayed by insiders is not limited to mere fear of public humiliation, it's about history repeating itself, and about his children being subject to the unrelenting media scrutiny he weathered when rumors about his paternity floated during his teenage years. This oncoming sense of doom can be traced directly to one eerie detail. Rumors have dogged Harry his whole life that he may not belong to Charles. Although he has since made a frustrated denial, and although DNA has cast doubt on the rumors that James Hewitt, with whom Diana conceded she was in a relationship, is his biological father, the emotional scar has never quite sealed. Being a bastard cut deep into not just Harry's self-identity but his familial status. The idea that his young children are now vulnerable to the kind of accusations made against him, as Tom Bower implied, brings back deep-seated pain that few are strong enough to live through. Harry can easily imagine himself being forced to relive all his humiliations, every horrid headline, every condemning stare. This time, though, the anticipation of Archie and Lily getting pulled into it makes that panic feel very real. It's the terror of a father who doesn't want his children to be marked the same way he was. The mysteriousness of the births only adds to the anxiety. When Archie was born in 2019, the palace broke from tradition and did not have the usual public photo call outside the hospital. Meghan and Harry opted for a carefully choreographed introduction inside Windsor Castle 2 days later instead. While making Bower's allegations public would have been grossly unfair to Niecy, things looked different in light of her claims. Why break with tradition if there was nothing to hide? Reporters were kept at a remove and little information was provided about medical personnel or delivery particulars. At first thought intrusive, these questions now arouse suspicion. Things only got muddier from the official royal correspondence around Lebo's arrival in California in 2021. Juliana Arnez, yet by press release, was the only way her birth was announced. Later pictures were on the Sussexes' schedule, and doubters suggested that the whole thing had been overmanaged to the point that had raised concerns. Between the tradition and the secrecy, Tom Bower's approach tends to focus. With unanswered inquiries, he turned privacy into skepticism. With the media skeptical Meghan and Harry, journalists jumped at the story, despite lacking solid evidence. When the accusation became public, the opacity of the past became a breeding ground for speculation. Every strange detail suddenly feels like a signpost as to why Archie's godparents were kept secret for so long. The muddle over whether Meghan had gone into labor at Portland Hospital and the seeming lack of readiness at the palace to confirm any details upon questioning contributes to a narrative suggesting a mismatch. As this story continues to unfold, so do the real stakes behind it. And beyond the emotional cost, there is a real cost. The foundation of the monarchy lies in blood lineage validity, effectively making it the life and soul of the monarchy. From time to time in the course of history, wrangling over succession, legitimacy and undiscovered heirs have been of such consequence in British affairs that they sparked wars. If Archie and Lilibet are ever proved not to be Harry's, their status in the line of succession would now be impossible to ignore. Do they maintain their titles? Are they from the Windsor line? Might Meghan and Harry be accused themselves of duping the very institution? Even if the monarchy never publicly responds to the claims, the damage to public perception could be immense, analysts believe. The monarchy is a religion as much as a legal system. It relies on the assumption that the powerful are linked by an unbroken chain of ancestry. A breach of that assumption would open the whole institution up to challenge. For Harry and Meghan, this is about royalty and beyond. It is a disaster of their American face, their new life. It's the power of storytelling, and their kids are a big part of it. They make them more marketable. Their Netflix deal, the work their Archwell Foundation does, and their speaking engagements succeed if the Sussexes are the family with a story that is relatable and inspiring. The children represent an escape from the monarchy, and an opportunity for a fresh legacy. If we can somehow eave any more doubt on that salacious story, we can destroy them at their very core, making their gossip a real threat to their financial well-being, credibility, and chance at success in a market that seems increasingly uninterested in their spectacle. The wonder about Archie and Lilibet's identities in the eyes of the public could threaten to drag the House of Windsor into its most personal scandal yet, involving ideas of heritage and the maintenance of a centuries-old name. But the chaos in Harry's life isn't just about responding to scuttlebutt, It's about fear that the history he's so powerfully fought to fight, complete with protecting his mother's legacy, slapping together a new kind of familial bond, could all come crumbling down under the weight of a relentless accusation. As the world waits at the edge of its seat for various reveals, a burning question remains: what's the deal with Archie and Lilibet? This response, whatever its content, can shake to the core not only a family but the entire future of the monarchy. Bower, whose figure tends to rip a hole through the facade of royal mystery with razor-sharp insight, is the name looking increasingly at the heart of this story, an on-off threat yet vital presence in the world of investigative journalism. His writings about leaders of men are more than a chronicle. They're hard facts delivered with the relentless force of someone who is not going to be distracted by royal privilege and better titles or fame. But when he came to Harry and Meghan, it was clear that something momentous was about to happen, though it would have taken a better clairvoyant than even he is to foresee the extent to which the revelation he was about to unleash would rock the world to its foundations. That scoop, Archie Harrison and Lily Diana might not be related to Prince Harry. But for the gravity of this revelation to sink in, you have to know Tom Bower. He is no mere peddler of gossip, depending on rumor. His books, frequently drawn from years of interviews and scrupulous investigations, have jarred governments and humiliated billionaires. He feeds on the answers he receives, knowing the more incendiary the charge, the deeper the scar it inflicts on reputations carefully cultivated over time. The former are not fans and see him as a cheerleader for some causes, cherry-picking evidence that suits, the latter as one of the few prepared to question people who are supposed to be beyond question. His words alone are weighty with a force of few equals. When Bower suggests that Harry's children might not be biologically his, the idea is not immediately set aside by the world. Instead, it hears, it asks, and it responds. The breathtaking quality of his pronouncement is its striking simplicity. No need for fancy words or outrageous drama. He just lays it all out so matter-of-factly. The messaging has been clearly directed with what many view as a sinister insinuation. Meghan used a third party or gestational surrogate, the statement read in part. An admission that implies that Archie and Lily Diana are not Harry's biological children in a culture where family is often equated with blood. It was like tossing a match into a room soaked in gasoline. Public reaction ranged from astonishment to wonder to outrage. Some dismissed it as a groundless attack on Meghan, others saw it as solid confirmation of niggling suspicions they have harbored for years. For Harry, it took the form of more than just criticism. It landed personally and painfully, bringing about the same sort of gossip that had plagued him his entire life. The media wasted no time. Bower's words were echoed within hours in headlines around the world, leading to discussions on television segments. On tabloids, the images of Harry, Meghan, and the children were overlaid, asking readers to play a heartless game of match. Social media went there with hashtags, so that even would-be avoiders of the scandal had it shoved in their faces on your feed. Each image of Archie, Lily, or fragments parsed out and shared to cast them as stand-ins for innocence and potential got weaponized, studied by strangers armed with magnifying glasses and unchecked imaginations. The impact was immediate. It might have been brushed off as a tinfoil hat theory if it had came from anyone's mouth other than Bower, a name that adds instant authority and legitimacy to an issue being addressed. Exacerbating matters was the timing. The Sussexes are already steering through a treacherous time as a family. Their work with Netflix was under scrutiny, and a collaboration with Spotify had stumbled. The rebranding of Meghan as an international lifestyle icon was proving something of a difficult sell. Into this tender situation stepped an accusation that threatened to mar their public reputation and question their roles as parents. To their critics, it was more proof of a constructed narrative led by deceit. His defenders saw a new blow from an establishment with teeth bared. The monarchy, though, saw it as a crisis that needed to be strategically managed. Silence could potentially be interpreted as weakness, while engaging could fan the flames yet further. The response, therefore, was an official silence, and the world must draw its own deductions. But what of Harry himself? Insiders said that he had reacted with outright alarm. There she was, Meghan, the one known for staring adversity in the face, and Harry, described as more emotionally brittle and more likely to take attacks personally, much more of an internalizer. It was a statement from Bauer that cut to the bone, going well beyond political or financial accusations and into his family's sanctity. And for him the fear wasn't just at what was being alleged, but in how the accusations itself reverberated with the darkest period of his life. Harry has been plagued by rumors for years that his biological father was James Hewitt. Rumors abounded and Diana even publicly commented on them at one point. To see history repeating itself in the way people talked about his own children must have felt like a curse of the generations from which he could not escape. The explosive revelation not just laid bare the weakness of Harry and Meghan's conceit of secrecy, but also the unexpected consequences of hiding large chunks of their children's lives from the public. When Bauer's claim was made, there was a backlog of unanswered questions about the lack of traditional hospital pictures. The planned family portraits, the waits for godparents to be announced, the contradictions in the timing of Meghan's supposed 4-day overage, all once seen as the private choices of private people, now seemed full of questions. In hindsight, it wasn't that the public had physical proof, it had none. Instead, the opaqueness itself was the equivalent of smoke that Bauer, lacking more tangible evidence of the fire, could pounce on. But the most disturbing part of this whole thing is what it can set off. If Archie and Lily are not Harry's biological children, what does this mean for their place in the succession line? The monarchy has suffered any number of scandals, but legitimacy has always been non-negotiable. These are not just paternity issues, they really go to the heart of the monarchy itself. Meghan and Harry have stepped back from their royal duties, but their children technically remain in line to the throne. That makes Bauer's claim not just scandalous but dangerous, reaching far beyond Tatler talk to constitutional law. Could Parliament potentially intervene? Can titles be revoked or lines of succession altered? While these questions may be academic, the very fact that we can entertain such questions speaks volumes about the scale of the crisis. At the same time, but also in episode response/comment, it's just going to keep getting worse. For those who were skeptical before, Meghan Bauer's claim only reinforces their skepticism. Overwhelmingly, they interpret the move as a signal of how a woman will use even the most intimate corners of her experience to preserve dominion over her own story. Others, however, see the charge as a downright attack on motherhood. They see it as an attempt to portray Meghan as an unfit parent and to use her offspring against her. Enter the TV debate and a whole new dimension and length to the scandal that cannot be handled by any amount of royal PR. The tragic irony is that Archie and Lilibet, the innocent offspring intended to be a new chapter for Harry, are now pawns in a feud that spanned generations before they came along. They were there to say that a new story was being launched, a family freed from the straitjacket of royalty to make its own way. Instead, their names have been dragged into murky speculation that could now determine the trajectory of their formative years, just as their father's was tainted by rumors. For Harry, this isn't just anxiety, this is heartbreak. It embodies the dawning moment when he learns, no matter how fast he runs, his royal problems won't be left behind, instead creeping into the lives of the people he loves most. The truth is out now, the reactions are getting more and more intense, and the conflict in Harry's world is thick, but the end still seems to be at a distance. Is Tom Bauer revealing a concealed truth or deftly filling the voids created by Meghan and Harry's search for privacy? The lack of clear answers ensures that the story won't go away, but will only become more intense. And as it has continued to metastasize, Harry and Meghan find themselves not just in the eye of the storm, but at risk of being consumed by it. Now the question turns from whether the world will believe Bauer to whether Harry can withstand the weight of the world upon him. Those near Prince Harry describe him as someone who wears his heart on his sleeve, unlike others in the royal family. William conceals his emotions with a perfect facade, notes the follower. Harry wears his heart on his sleeve. It's a trait that endeared him to many when he mourned his mother so openly as a boy, and even more when as an adult he bravely forms raw words around his own battle with his mental health. But that very quality leaves him profoundly vulnerable. When the allegations appeared, according to insiders who both spoke on the condition of anonymity to discuss internal matters, Harry went into full-on panic mode. This palpable panic was consuming, guttural and unyielding. It wasn't a theoretical fear. It haunted him at night, when he couldn't manage to settle his mind as he paced through the rooms of his Montecito house. Harry's intensifying worry also caused tension with Meghan, according to reports. Although they put on a front to the outside world, their union still held a number of underlying tensions. Meghan is known to have a thick skin when it comes to taking on the criticism. Confronted with Bower's claims, her method was to strategize, lawyer up and work to control the narrative. Harry, however, was afraid. He was concerned for his children, who would never have wanted to be caught up in this mess. He was afraid of the trauma of a public identification as illegitimate when he himself was barely past his teenage years, and concerned that his silence would be taken as a sign of weakness or even as evidence of guilt. The fear got worse as Harry considered what being in such a chaotic position would do to his children. In interviews, he expressed his biggest regret as not being able to protect Diana from the constant public scrutiny and promised to make sure his wife and children never had to suffer a similar fate. Now, I'm going through this again, but this time is even worse because it's about people who are in my family, and Archie and Lilibet are not being questioned about how brilliant they are or anything they've done, but about their legitimacy. It was horrible to even think about the existence of such a cruel possibility. Apparently, he got mad at Meghan because he could not blame her. It's just hard when you are a dissident by nature, and she wants to give up. If Harry responded by being aggressive, nothing could prevent the scandal from a further exacerbation. When she was quiet, she thought he chose to hide. Harry, on the other hand, thought it was impossible to allow anything that could be used against them and either take the country's side or inspire him to do it. This power struggle, according to both sides, caused a lot of tension and resentment. But the idea of Harry's storm came about because with this dependence, the young man has never sought a balance between private and public life. He also wanted the lifestyle in which the House of Commons traditionally lived, and from which he retired, to be passed on to him. He wished not to rule, as I was more used to, but to remain free. But free will is now trapped. The family that raised him is inextricably linked to any issue, from documentaries distributed on Netflix to books about them. In that sense, his children were precious and essential. They were part of a story that the public was being told. If that story could be topped to its very basis, the whole fabric they had elaborately built up would tremble on the verge of destruction. He was a man who simply sought recognition as a father, and here he was trapped in the most grotesque of situations where his status as a parent was now under constant siege. He could not hold back his tears even though he was surrounded by friends and family who had been with him. According to friends, private discussions revealed a man whose inner life was in turmoil, filled with dread and unable to rest. He repeatedly questioned what could be done to stop the story from spreading. Therapists and counselors, who had become regulars in his life after his stepping down from royal duties, he said, were again his primary sources of support. The allegations rendered him powerless, he said, making him feel like he was watching his family fall apart at the seams. As the public's hamster wheel of delight kept spinning, it was no longer just about the monarchy or its media frenzies, it was about the defense of his children's identities, the core of who they are. For Harry, what exacerbated the crisis was the knowledge that this scandal was not confined to British tabloids. The media frenzy over only a few days was intense, with American, Australian and European news organizations running with Bower's claims and with the online echo chamber machine churning them out to millions. Harry had spent his whole life with a chip on his shoulder about the media, but now had seen just how the modern media world could turn a simple rumor into a global narrative, it said. Once more he felt hounded, by paparazzi cameras, yes, but also by unseen nets of commentary seeping into all our living rooms. Then tensions rose again with Meghan as more stories of arguments emerged. Meghan'd been keen to play hardball, the thinking being that if they sued Bauer and his publishers, they could gag him and pressure publications to withdraw their stuff. But Harry was more reluctant, aware that legal tussles could prolong the scandals and give them credence. It was not just the accusations themselves that gave him anxiety, but the fear that he might handle his response poorly. Faced with a dilemma, he could either let them be, thereby fueling speculation, or challenge them, and thereby risk the appearance of lending them credence. This internal conflict escalated his fears and sparked clashes with Meghan, straining his relations with the royal family. Even after they had washed their hands of him, apart from their critical gaze, there was still something about the community that itched violently between his shoulder blades. Knowing the weight in which such whispers of legitimacy was held within palace corridors, the existence of the allegation alone made uneasy all families, regardless of their stance on Bauer. Harry feared his father and brother, who hadn't exactly held his decisions in the highest regard beforehand, would have more reason to be skeptical. This was not only because he wanted to shield his children from dishonor, but also because it threatened to confirm his reputation as a wayward outsider who could not be trusted to maintain the dignity of the crown. One of Harry's dilemmas was that this despair was cyclical, so that he was perpetually trapped within a cycle during which he re-experienced the trauma of his own childhood while attempting to prevent his own children from facing similar traumas. Diana, as a boy, had fought to protect him from the harshness of royal destiny, yet he endured continued rumors about his paternity. Now a father, he found himself encountering that nightmare in reverse. His fear is not baseless. It has its roots in experience. He is all too familiar with how these rumors can shape the person you become, haunting you for decades and eroding one's sense of self. He can't bear to think of Archie and Lily suffering the same fate. Harry allows the truth to sink in despite his distress. The world is not going to stop its questioning just because he wants it to. The seed of Tom Bauer's claim has been planted, and doubts grow in the fertile fallow of secrecy. Unless he and Meghan address the narrative, the wait for speculation will go on. So, how could they respond to a DNA test? A legal dispute. A meticulously crafted denial. Each option is risky, and each risks a transformation of private suffering into a public spectacle. Chapter 2, Harry at a Crossroads, ended with Harry looking at a crossroads. His terror is tangible, his fears are justified, but his options are limited. The weight of history, the glare of the media, the strife in his marriage and the vulnerability of his children all come to a head in this moment. He is caught in the storm with nothing but the ability to weather it. Now, with the passing of time and the mounting headlines, one truth becomes ever more clear: inaction is no longer acceptable. And so, wrestling with the prospect of ever-increasing panic, Harry prepares to take action that will not only decide his family's fate but what his children will think of him for the rest of their lives. And the mystery deepens around Archie's birth. For the vast majority of royal observers, the birth of a royal heir is not only a private family affair, but a public rite, full of protocol, tradition, and symbolism. From the carefully choreographed hospital photos to the formal proclamations presented on easels outside Buckingham Palace, the arrival of a royal baby has always been bound by exacting standards designed to ensure transparency and buttress legitimacy. But when Archie Harrison Mountbatten Windsor came into the world in May 2019, virtually every tradition was broken. Meghan and Harry's ostensible search for solitude has, in the wake of Bauer's claims, been recast as clandestine actions that much too often prompt an unwelcome second look. For many, the first red flag was the day of Archie's birth. The palace released an announcement on Meghan's labor that was revealed to have been hours after she had already given birth. At the time, This unexplained gap caused some concern but was soon forgotten as the news of the new royal baby took over. Now, detractors point to that moment as evidence that information was deliberately withheld. The whole murky debate over the timing of Archie's birth appeared so jarring alongside the usually meticulously orchestrated and ordered royal births, intended to serve a coordinated narrative. The details were murky, and there was a lingering suspicion that the family was withholding information from the public. There were also rumors over where she gave birth, with early reports in the press claiming that Meghan was at Portland Hospital in London, a favorite among the celebrity set, while others contradicted that information. Journalists worked to check delivery details, medical staff involved and labor circumstances, creating a level of opacity unusual even for a private family but with enormous implications for a royal birth linked to questions of succession and legitimacy. With no transparency, speculation has filled the gap ever since. Tom Bower pointed that out, evoking that there perhaps has been a sort of smokescreen or cover-up going on around Archie's arrival. The situation was made even more mysterious by a lack of the usual photo call at the hospital and a break from tradition. Louis introduced his newborns to the world a few hours after their birth on the steps of the hospital. Meghan, however, turned down this long-held tradition as it was invasive. Instead, she and Harry set up an elaborately staged photo op planned for 2 days later at Windsor Castle. Some welcomed it as a departure from conventional practices, others saw a calculated ploy to tightly manage the situation. The pictures that came out of the second wedding, while impressive, looked a little bit staged, which disappointed a world that was used to the spontaneity. Critics pointed out the problem was not necessarily one of privacy, whatever its legal merits, but one of obstructing information about Meghan's pregnancy and birth. The drama escalated as inconsistencies were discovered with Archie's birth certificate. While it eventually did confirm the birthplace to be the Portland Hospital, the time it took to release it only provided further fuel to the fire. Why the long wait? Why the alterations? On their own, these may seem like trifling bureaucratic stumbles, but with the context of Bower's accusations, they fit neatly as smaller claims in the quilt of secrecy. See, there's something there behind every door. The public spotlight also fell on Meghan's public appearances in the lead-up to the baby, leading to rampant rumor-mongering in the tabloids and on the internet. Critics have focused on the changeability of her baby bump across different photos, sometimes accusing her of wearing padding or arranging photo ops. Though such allegations have typically been more flight of fancy than based in fact, they have certainly picked up steam since Bower's allegations. Old photographs emerged, and they were obsessively scrutinized by amateur experts who were certain something seemed a little off. The issue of whether or if at all Meghan was carrying Archie was the subject of much speculation around the world, made worse by Harry and Meghan failing to deny it in any detail, only adding to rumor. For Harry, it was about shielding Archie from the same media-frenzy childhood he had experienced, one that saw him constantly followed by paparazzi and his every move profiled. The choice not to share was, for him, a sign of love, a barrier between his son and unwanted attention. But by attempting to show Harry in a positive light, Harry does it from a place of love. By doing it now becomes a cover-up in the eyes of some. However, Bower's claims have now brought this theory into the mainstream, new recasting Harry's past actions as those of a trickster who is left feeling entangled. The palace's role in this story cannot be underestimated. Usually, royal births are shrouded from public view, but palace officials make a truly concerted effort to get the news right and clear, informative messaging right away. But in Archie's, the palace seemed unusually unsure and hesitant. Delayed public statements, reluctance to answer questions about medical officials, and a failure to clear up discrepancies have helped create an anxious mood. As I hear it, there's speculation at the court that this confusion was the result of Meghan and Harry wanting to manage the story. Marginalizing palace press, officers who might have cleared the air were kept out. The palace itself was distancing, acknowledging that the birth was playing out in ways that veered from tradition. Nevertheless, the result was the same: the lack of follow-through on the question gave the people something to speculate on. Archie's baptism has been equally shrouded in mystery and intrigue. Unlike previous royal christenings, such as those of Princes Harry, William, George, and Louis, Archie's christening was a private affair, with photographs only being made public. Only certain images were released, which only increased suspicion. The couple's names of Archie's godparents were kept hidden for several months, breaking royal traditions established by Meghan and Harry. Critics saw this as another protection of privacy, but an effort to hide the truth. Tom Bower raised these decisions as part of a broader pattern through his narrative and book promos. This desire to protect the truth about Archie's origins from the public eye was the motivating force behind these clandestine moves. According to reports, Harry was seriously worried about how things may look. His goal was to preempt any unsolicited attention that his son may receive and get in front of the narrative. Unfortunately, this secrecy has inadvertently invited criticism upon themselves. The concern is not that people might question Archie's bloodline, it is that he might grow up with a cloud of suspicion hanging over his parentage. The downward spiral of doubt strikes a chord with Harry, who has previously revealed how he was followed by whispers Charles might not be his dad through childhood. At the bottom of Archie's fear is the fear of himself falling to the same fate. The privacy shield Harry and Meghan once built looks dishonest now. Now what were merely considered unconventional aspects of modern parenting during the birth of Archie are allegedly at the heart of Tom Bower's allegations. Harry is trapped in his own decisions, unable to change the public perception of the story. And the celebration, the rejuvenation, that was predicted around Archie's arrival has become a crucial question in itself, a mystery that endures and that could shape the boy's identity as fully as his titles. Harry and Meghan welcomed their second child in June 2021 in California, not in the London hospital under royal tradition and not emerging from the walkway at the palace for an official announcement either. As they are independent from royal duties and reside in the United States now, the couple elected to approach the birth of their daughter on their own terms, which is a choice that for so many people felt only natural at first. But critics have since said this was a deliberate cover-up after Tom Bower's allegations. Every detail of Lilibet's birth and debut are now being focused on by the critics, the way they've picked apart Archie, prompting constant investigations. Lilibet's announcement of arrival was a break in royal tradition. As the newborn's news was released late, press releases typically come out earlier than the one for Lily. The public was not informed of her arrival until 2 days after the fact, catching the palace flat-footed, as it typically issues swift statements on royal births. But there was no coordinated media strategy and no process for timely updates, underscoring how the narrative had now moved to Harry and Meghan. This break from the norm led to speculation of some sort of secrecy. The choice to bypass the usual palace practice prompted some to question the motive behind the decision. Curiously, Lilibet's photos were mysteriously absent from the early days, given the poignant symbolism behind her name, which honors both Queen Elizabeth II and Princess Diana. The announcement of the newborn was conspicuously low-key and, in contrast to the usual royal birth announcement, not accompanied by photographs. No carefully choreographed images of beaming parents emerging from a hospital. There was no such disgust back then, though, instead, the world had to pass the time and wait a few months before catching a glimpse of her when her first official portrait was revealed on her first birthday. The picture still incited debate, with skeptics insisting it was too perfect or had to have been tampered with. His supporters saw a quaint family photo. Skeptics saw it as a Cold War-era maneuver to hide the child's appearance. Once more, secrecy bred suspicion. The mystery began in fine form with all ambiguities surrounding the baptism of Lily. Royal christenings are usually steeped in tradition, with official portraits and formal announcements of godparents. But Lily's ceremony was different. She was rumored to be secretly baptized in California with only a couple of people present, one of whom was reported to be Tyler Perry, who was said to be her godfather. The palace never officially announced the birth, No public pictures were issued and just a few details were provided beyond those Meghan and Harry wanted known. Critics argued that this was further evidence of a deliberate cover-up. And they wondered why even the most basic traditions could not be followed. Was it only about privacy or was something deeper hidden? Even her name was controversial. When Harry and Meghan announced they would name their daughter Lily, an eternally royal-sounding name closely associated with the Queen's own childhood and not bestowed on many who were not closest to her, it inflamed outrage among palace courtiers. Some insiders claimed that the Queen hadn't signed off on the name, while Harry and Meghan said she had. The name dispute intensified the sense that the arrival of Lilibet was not just a personal incident but a calculated message for critics. Instead of appearing as a tribute, the name seemed more of a power play to help merge the American offspring of Meghan and Harry with the heart of the monarchy, no matter how tenuously they were actually embraced by it. Tom Bower sees this specifics as a story of deliberate manipulation. He notes the secrecy, staged photos, unusual manner of the christening, and the name battle as evidence that Lilibet's story has not developed naturally on its own, but has instead been carefully scripted. Apparently, this work of fiction is actually hiding a more grim reality that Harry is not her real dad. In raising this, Bower forces the world to question its preconceived ideas about the child. Every small fact, including the late announcement, no photos in the early days, and a private christening, in his eyes, stops being a mere coincidence and becomes a polite nod towards Harry. This perspective is profoundly impactful. Lilibet represents the connection between his past and future, named after his grandmother who molded the monarchy and his mother, Doria Ragland, who shaped his personal life. The idea that anyone might question her existence or her identity and hurl her into the maelstrom of public debate that once consumed him is incomprehensibly horrifying. Insiders describe Harry as being fiercely protective of Lily, even more so than of Archie, because she was born entirely outside the royal establishment. Her life, in his eyes, was to represent freedom itself, freedom from the palace's rigid etiquette. However, the current scandal only serves to thrust her into the very limelight he was trying to avoid, a cruel twist of fate that adds to his stress. The palace's handling of Lily has helped fuel the narrative. Queen Elizabeth is said to have met her briefly at the Platinum Jubilee celebrations, but no pictures of the event were released. Theories circulated that the Queen deliberately snubbed being photographed with her great-granddaughter because of her own health or because she didn't want to contribute to the legitimacy of questions around the child. True or not, the missing photo was conspicuous, possibly momentous. The monarch, with the baby Lilibet, taking her name from a childhood nickname for him. Since no such image has surfaced, that vacuum has given rise to speculation ad infinitum, which is what has enabled Bower to exploit the situation. The dispute, too, has an effect on the public image of Meghan and Harry in America. Their Netflix documentary did show small snippets of family life, but there were not many clips of Lilibet, and they were hand-picked. But for a lot of people watching, there wasn't enough honesty or off-the-cuffness to humanize the child. Instead of being a triumphant and private moment in their lives, the arrival of their precious child has regrettably become another tragic chapter in their web of doubt and distrust. And Harry, the anxiety never ends because he knows that if he doesn't sort out the background questions, speculation will never stop. Lebo was set up to represent a new beginning, but that could be in jeopardy now, and she may join the ranks of her disgraced parents, and cause ripples throughout the monarchy. This characteristic is unique to Britain, where inheritance to the throne is a factor of legitimacy, where such and such a person is next in line because of an unbroken line of descent. All tradition, right, and law of the line of succession is predicated on this basic truth. To call into question the parentage of Archie and Lila is to rail not only at Harry's family, but at the very substance of their birthright. To question the foundational skeleton of the monarchy is a deep thing to do. Tom Bower's charge lands with the weight of a cannonball, opening a portal into one of the most disquieting through lines. The shadow of royal lineage can cause doubts in a monarchy's foundation, however. To fully understand the seismic nature of those doubts, a review of the history is required. Divorces, abdications, wars and betrayals have scarred the British monarchy, but perhaps no challenge has sparked as much opposition as the question of who should sit on the throne. The Wars of the Roses were fought over competing claims to the throne, with competing houses claiming its legitimacy through bloodline. Henry VIII's split from the Catholic Church was in part motivated by his obsession with having a legitimate male heir. During Elizabeth I's rule there were repeated threats due to claimants to the throne, and this theme has persisted to this day. Legitimacy holds significant weight. Edward VIII abdicated in part because his marriage to Wallis Simpson threatened the stability of succession. The lesson of the ages is clear: when the monarchy's legitimacy is contested, the monarchy itself starts to shake. Bower's claim about Archie and Lily isn't just tabloid scuttlebutt. If it's established Harry is not the father, the question becomes the status of Archie and Lily in the line of succession. Under the law, royal children keep their place, as long as the marriage to which their legitimacy is assigned is proven valid. But public attitudes are key. A monarchy is as dependent on belief as any religion: belief in the sanctity of the bloodline, belief in the unbroken chain of history. If that belief is eroded, the moral prestige of the monarchy is undermined. Imagine a world in which the legitimacy of Archie and Lilibet is the main news of the day when Charles or William is king. And that could give Republicans the ammunition to argue that the institution is antiquated, hypocritical, and less than credible. The palace is said to be highly embarrassed by Bower's claims, which it has so far refused to comment on. They might not address the allegations, but they know what can happen. Doubts about the legitimacy of the children provide strength to opponents of monarchy. Even in the absence of any action from the palace, doubt begins to take hold. Whispers and rumors whispered about, hearing that the monarchy is potentially weak and can be manipulated. It's not just Meghan and Harry's reputations at stake, but the monarchy's very structure of the crown itself. It's an agony for Harry to see this. His life has long been cast in the shadow of his spareness, the younger son who was there to support but never to inherit. He has tended to resent this role, unable to overcome it. Now, with Bower's claims, the very hierarchy of his own children now begins to be questioned. It is a bitter turn of events for Harry. The same system that discarded him as a boy now threatens to eradicate his children's identities completely. It is not just a father's anxiety but a prince's, with the knowledge of the brutal facts of lineage. If his heirs are not recognized as legitimate, it's not only that they will be marginalized, they will be written out of history. Meghan's critics cite this as her biggest gamble. She may have underestimated the obsession the monarchy and its cadre of followers have with bloodlines by, according to reports, doing something secretive or unconventional to have children. Let's just say that in America, where the Sussexes now live, family is defined more broadly by love, choice and care. Contrast this in the UK, where the blood is far more important, particularly within the monarchy. This cultural collision serves only to highlight the scandal. To Meghan, protecting her children from public scrutiny is a natural instinct; to the British establishment, it's a cover-up. Bower deftly exploits this disjunction, depicting Meghan as not so much a concerned mother as a schemer attempting to contort systems created centuries ago to her own ends. The fallout is already here. Royal pundits speculate endlessly on television. Tabloids have published retrospectives on the differential treatment of Archie and Lilibet versus William's children. Opinion polls reflect a rising skepticism about Harry and Meghan as players in the royal drama. There are some who will continue to support them because they are the victims of relentless media scrutiny, but others are convinced the secrecy is because they are not who they seem. For a monarchy that leans on public support, this loss of trust is a danger. Whilst it is never going to instantly blow apart the institution, it is part of the rising tide of Republican feeling across Britain and the Commonwealth. And then there is that symbolic element of Archie and Lilibet as well. They were meant to represent a new chapter for the monarchy, a mix of the past and present, a more racially diverse royal family that reflects the changing face of Britain. Meghan and Harry's well-wishers celebrated the likeness of the children as images of progress, as the embodiment of not only Windsor's legacy, but a diverse future. If doubts are cast on their legitimacy, not only Harry and Meghan but the whole idea of a modern monarchy is thrown into question. Far from being heralded as a positive step forward, the children could find themselves awkward symbols of the discord between the monarchy's efforts to modernize and lingering unease within. Yet the question of bloodline truth contains a more sinister cast. Some are concerned that if sentiments escalate, radical factions within the monarchy may eventually push to officially remove Archie and Lily from the line of succession. While legally twisted, the very idea of such a proposal had deep repercussions. This would set Harry against the very stable he claims to want to flee and shield for the sake of the family's fragile unity. It would frame Meghan as an outsider whose own blood kind spoiled the family line. It would also brand the children as bastards, a stigma that can follow them for the rest of their lives. This isn't just a question of whether Archie and Lily look like Harry or whether Meghan chose privacy over tradition. It goes further into the monarchy's most basic and explicit promise that this is a line of battle that cannot and will not be broken. The promised bridge has been broken by Tom Bower, and that break is opening further and further. Harry's anxiety is not only tied to the heartache of what it's like to have his children's authenticity questioned, but about generations-old traditions crumbling in the face of such doubts. After wars and abdications and betrayals, can the monarchy survive doubts about the very bloodline that legitimated it? Bower has forced the world to ask it, out loud. That's exactly what is hanging over Harry, Meghan, and their children right now. Their financial and public relations dynamic is one of the key factors for their survival outside the monarchy. When they left their working royal roles in 2020, they severed the financial buffer known as belonging to the firm. If it was on level ground, it would be symbolic, and I think that played a part in it, but it was a practical consideration as well, because we wrestled with these payments, these mortgages, security costs, and the need to become self-sufficient. Their story was of a modern, young family that had turned its back on old-fashioned traditions, and in Archie and Lily, they were the embodiment of that beginning and a grounding of their tale in emotive terms with the public. Their story wouldn't be complete without their children at the heart of it. The allegations by Tom Bower will affect not just Harry and Meghan's private world but also their bikini line, and in this reading their funds. The couple had cited their deal with Netflix, said to be worth $100 million, as their chief commercial asset in their post-royal life. So if the Sussexes themselves were the latest celebrities to sign with Netflix, it may not entirely be because they are stars but because they are royal, and because they have committed themselves to sharing real and authentic stories from their own lives. Audiences expected to see peaks of their family life, their hardship, their triumph. When the documentary series about Harry and Meghan was first broadcast, it was moments with their children that captured imaginations and softened public opinion. Whether it's hearing a snippet of Archie's voice, catching a look at Lily playing, or catching sight of a family candid, these moments served as a powerful reminder that Harry and Meghan were more than public figures, they were parents on a difficult path. Without these family values incorporated, the project would have been hollow. Netflix knew this just as the Sussexes did, so Bower's allegations could be particularly damaging, particularly if steam gathers behind the notion that there's something suspicious surrounding the veracity of their children. Their brand, so instrumental in shaping the Spotify deal in the end fell apart, was grounded in the family fable. Meghan's podcast focused on the world of motherhood and identity, and included interviews with other parents. And although the children were largely in the background, they lent credibility to what Meghan had to say about resilience and generational change. In his memoir, Harry is frequently introspective about fatherhood, reasoning about his own experiences as the son of Princess Diana and his role in protecting his own children. and every project connected to their post-royal life seemed to have Archie and Lilibet as the silent co-stars. Without these, their characters would have been one-dimensional, unrelatable, concisely unsellable. It's why speculation about the children's parentage isn't just rude gossip. It is a direct assault on their fundraising system. The Sussex brand sells itself on authenticity. They promise to show the public raw, unfiltered inside looks at their lives as raw, unfiltered truth-telling and vulnerability. If the kids within these stories are perceived as the pawns within a construct even unfairly, the brand would potentially be accused of being disingenuous. In our super cutthroat media and entertainment realm, the optics matter. Netflix, Spotify, publishers and sponsors are loyal not to face but to bottom line. If Harry and Meghan's public image falters, such agreements can vanish as quickly as they materialized. Rumors of a performance slump and waning interest in the Sussexes have been making the rounds. Bower's accusations could accelerate that decline. Few people understand that reality better than Meghan, the tactician. In the professional life she led prior to Harry, this involved carefully staged media appearances, tightly managed communication, and leveraging opportunities that met her career goals. Ever since becoming a royal, she has fiercely defended her public image, fighting legal action against the tabloids and newspapers she believes have mischaracterized her. Bower's charge is more than just an insult to her personally, it is a threat to the empire that she and Harry have painstakingly pieced together. Insider reports say she wants to push back with a lawsuit. They are weighing public statements and carefully staged public appearances. She knows, secondly, that once the dishonest story gets out it is almost impossible to stop it. Harry, on the other hand, is just torn. Though he admits that their children are part of their public image now, he struggles with the idea of using that for financial gain. He has resented being trotted out like a royal prop his whole life, for pictures, for ceremonies, for media. He is resolved that Archie and Lily won't share his fate. However, in reality, their presence is what's valuable when it comes to the Sussexes. This struggle burdens him, adding to the pressure and the anxiety compounded by Bower's charges. If he recedes and fully protects his children, their brand is degraded. If he is at least making it cheap or inexpensive by raising their public profile, speculation still increases. It's a no-win situation that pins him in place with volatility. Making things murkier is the criticism Meghan and Harry are under, which has portrayed their pursuit of financial independence as hypocritical. Hoping for privacy when they retreated from the royal family, they signed multi-million-dollar contracts that demanded the disclosure of their private lives. You let them down by puncturing the lining of their birther bubble with the pointy stick of "this is just another racist conspiracy that makes you and your boyfriend the butts of jokes." They hate the British press but begged for interviews with the American press, which were carefully stage-managed. They denounced the monarchy as aloof, but they borrowed some of its most brutal tricks for managing images. Bower's claims here are not just about her, but are framed as proof that the whole Sussexes story is based on manipulation. Yet critics wonder, if Meghan and Harry could be so willing to cover up details about their children, what else might they be hiding? Harry's worry is not just from hiding his family from the public eye, but also the fact that his children's lives, the protection around them and his home in Montecito could all somehow be put at risk through the action and the style of Tyler's storytelling. Their position creates their very existence and is based on the expectation that they must not only maintain, but must remain in good standing and in credibility. Without this, they face financial devastation, something Harry himself has acknowledged openly he dreads. He's worried he'll lose his donors and won't be able to provide for his family. With the threat of Bower's allegations hanging over him, that fear is even more real now. And of course, the financial end of this equation goes beyond just how much money they have, but also how much standing they have in America. But what used to be seen as the embodiment of independence, strength and modernity in the form of Meghan and Harry is in serious danger of being lost in the American public's estimation. Americans like when something has a ring of truth to it, and the slightest whiff of inauthenticity can spell disaster. The cracks are already showing in the U.S. image, with late-night hosts making fun of the pair and commentators expressing skepticism about the women's victim narratives. Bauer's allegations also fan the flames, turning them from tragic victims into figures of overreaching ambition. In an industry where perception is everything, such a change could be death. The Archie and Lily identity matter is more than a question of Archie-Lily's lineage to a family circle, or royal lineage to a throne, it's lineage for survival in their lives. In a universe where money, image and truth are all closely entwined, Tom Bauer's bombshells about Harry and Meghan's private lives are an assault on their financial empire. Now every contract, every project and every carefully constructed photo shoot are under a harsh spotlight of scrutiny and skepticism. Harry's unease is increasing. For he is not just fighting for the honor of his children, but for the life he has created for them, outside the royal establishment. The bitter irony is here. As he fled the regal comforts of royal captivity, he may have inadvertently built an even more fragile one that depends wholly on a facade now being examined by masked critics the world over. She is the master of the clandestine, the genius of spinning narratives, and the most committed to ensuring the ugly truths of a situation stay safely hidden. To her fans, she is an embattled mother, protecting her children from a vicious press and royal establishment that never really welcomed her. And yet she remains at the heart of Tom Bauer's allegations, because all roads to inquiries about Archie and Lily lead back to her. Meghan has long been a polarizing figure, prior to her marriage to Harry. She was lauded as a go-getting actress who worked her way up from bit parts to a starring role as a 13-year-old in a hit TV series. The ambition that made her a hit in most circles became a liability as soon as she joined royal ones. Royal protocol is built on loyalty, discretion, and tradition. Meghan, meanwhile, railed against the need to shut up, write the same old story and play by the rules. It was the stubborn streak that won Harry's devotion, and bred suspicion among palace officials and in the press. The result was a collision of narratives. Meghan had one goal: to win. From the scripted announcement of Archie's birth to the delayed sharing of Lilibet photos, from the mom boasting about how protected they are from the media to the endless crocodile tear-stained interviews and PR stunts manufactured by the best in business, it all sounded grand and brave at first. But after Bauer's allegations, those same behaviors are now being reconsidered. What Meghan initially framed as protection is now being seen as insularity. A question of trust: did she protect her children from exploitation or hide the truth about their birth? That Meghan is litigious helps in this regard, critics note. Unlike most royals, Meghan has been quick to sue the press. She had a partial win in a legal tussle with the Mail on Sunday over a private letter. He has been threatened with lawsuits by the tabloids, or broadcasters have been seen as acts of courageous resistance to a pernicious media industry and as the purpose of an aggressive strategy to silence criticism and spin the story. It is interesting in relation to Tom Bauer's allegations that this preference for litigation exists. Meghan, should she decide hail an army of lawyers to the court, it could well be misinterpreted as something to try to hide. On the other hand, silence, as we know, also runs the risk of computing guilt. No way for a control freak to win in this scenario. Her prominent role in building the family's fortunes means she is also at the center of the scandal. While Harry has long coveted a quieter existence, Meghan has happily courted the limelight in America. She is directly involved in business ventures and various product lines that have led to the development of a successful brand. The kids too have been introduced with some care, not all the way, but enough that they remain on hand to fill out the image of the middle-class family. She also makes sure there will be glimpses throughout of Archie and Lily in their documentary. Speaking about motherhood in interviews and using familial rhetoric to connect with audiences has integrated her children into her public image. To doubt the existence of the children is to doubt the whole mode of operation. This suggests that whatever she is declaring as truth could be a show, and the realization could all come crashing down when the real reality hits her. For Harry, Meghan's professional journey is both a strength and a battle. Thank you for watching. If you were shocked by this revelation, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe for more royal bombshells. Stay tuned, the truth is just beginning to unfold.